Hello Mouses! Well, we've come to the end of Applying the Law to Batman now. We just have one more episode to go, so let's get straight to it. This week what we're discussing is wills, trusts and company law, because they all fit together very nicely due to the fact that Bruce Wayne was declared dead and his will was read, then he created a trust, he created some trusts himself, and then while using these trusts he ended up causing some problems with employment. So let's get into that. First of all, near the start of the film, Bruce Wayne is declared dead. His will is therefore read, and as a result, his property is distributed. How do wills work? Well, what a will is, it's basically a deed, which is an official document, and it's witnessed, and it states out what you want to be done with your property when you die. So, in Bruce Wayne's case, he left all of his property to Alfred, so it's a fairly simple will. But if he hadn't had a will, he would have died intestate, as they call it, which basically means without a valid will. So even if you have a will and it's just not written correctly, you're still intestate. If someone is intestate, the next of kin apply to the court for an administrator or multiple administrators to be appointed to deal with the estate. And they collate all of the property together, they pay all the debts off, and then they distribute the remainder to the next of kin. And an administrator is very similar to an executor, who is the person who is appointed in a valid will to do the same thing. So they collate all of your property together, they pay off your debts if you have any, and then they follow your instructions with what to do with your property as it's in the will, and anything that remains is distributed either to a person who is appointed to receive the remainder or to your next of kin. Now, Bruce Wayne was only declared dead, he wasn't actually dead. So when his will was read and everything went to Alfred, that's going to cause a problem when Bruce Wayne comes back. So what actually happens in these situations is the court decides that what actually happened was, instead of Alfred getting all of the stuff himself, he was given everything of Bruce Wayne's estate to hold on trust for Bruce until he came back. So Alfred is actually the trustee of what was called a resulting trust. The courts have said that this trust resulted due to all of the problems with actually finding out that the person who was declared dead isn't dead. So Bruce, being a person who is the age of majority and of sound mind, although we could argue that he's not since he dresses up as Batman on a night, but we'll leave that for a side for the moment. The resulting trust is therefore what's called a bare trust. This is a trust where the beneficiary has effectively full control and can instruct the trustee to do whatever they want. For example, they could say, right, I want the trust dissolved and all the property returned to me, which is probably what happened here. Now, Bruce himself sets up several trusts. As we find out in the film, various charitable trusts and other trusts are created and they buy all of the shares in Wayne Enterprises. And Bruce Wayne has control of these. Now, we could have control of them through a bare trust like we just described, where someone is a trustee and they hold the property on behalf of Bruce and deal with it on his behalf, but Bruce may as well cut out the middleman there, because instead of giving instructions through a bare trust, he could just declare himself the trustee of a property on behalf of himself and Alfred. He can't declare himself trustee just on his own behalf, because then he would still hold both sides of the legal property of a trust, and we'll get to what they are in a minute. And that is effectively the same as owning the property outright, so he can't do it. But he can set up a trust with him as the sole trustee for himself and Alfred as beneficiaries, and then control the trusts. So he's probably done that. So what is this about the different sides of ownership? In normal ownership, you own what is called the legal and equitable title to the property, which is basically the legal title being, in the eyes of the law, I own this, and the equitable title being, in the eyes of the law, I own this on behalf of those who are actually the owner, I just manage it. Now, equitable interests are very nice, but are very limited what you can do with them. You can apply to the court to have equitable interests recognised, so that trustees have to do things on your behalf rather than just what they want. But if you want proper ownership, you've got to have the legal title. Now, Bruce Wayne will have set up some trusts with himself and Alfred, most likely. He owns the legal title, so he effectively runs the property. At the start, is probably he's put loads of money into the trust, and the trust has then bought shares with that money. So he's transferred ownership on the terms of the trust from money to shares, and now he owns the shares on behalf of the trust, and he can do with them whatever he wants, providing he has the best interests of the beneficiaries in mind. And he does this by investing into Wayne Enterprises and running Wayne Enterprises. But he also says that he has charitable trusts. Now they're different. A charitable trust doesn't have any beneficiaries. It is there for the purposes of the charity, such as perhaps providing shelters for homeless people in Gotham City, or providing free education to the deprived, or scholarships and things like that. That's all kinds of educational trusts. He's going to need to manage the funds for those as well, as if those charitable interests were beneficiaries. And in Britain we have Charities Commission that monitors the actions of charities to make sure that that's happening, because a charitable interest, not being a legal person, can't sue Bruce Wayne in court if he doesn't manage the trust properly. And again, he runs it as if he was running a normal trust. He buys shares in Wayne Enterprises with the money that was originally there, so he's transferred trust fund ownership from money to shares, and that's perfectly legitimate because he's got all of the rights of owner apart from the equitable rights, and that's brilliant. So he's got control of Wayne Enterprises, which is very nice, and he's doing it instead of just having the shares in his own right, he's having them via a trust. So that's all well and good, but then he does a very silly thing. He fires the chief executive officer of Wayne Enterprises, and he just does it arbitrarily. He doesn't tell the guy. The guy actually turns up to a meeting and finds out that he's got no job. Well, unfortunately for Bruce Wayne, you can't do that. Laws in Britain are there to protect people, and some of the people that they protect are employees. For example, if I went to work and found out I'd been fired for no reason, or even for a minor reason, like I showed up a couple of minutes late a few days, they can't just fire me for that. That's not what allows you to fire someone in Britain. What you can dismiss someone on the spot with is very limited. It's called gross misconduct. And all we see this guy do that's wrong in the entire film is he fires Mr. Fox on the spot, which he can't do either. Now, yes, he has broken the law, but it's a civil law. It's not a criminal law. It's not a criminal offence, so it's unlikely to be a gross misconduct event. In fact, a lot of the time, people who do that don't even realise they can't do it. And that's why we have employment tribunals, where you can actually get your job back. But Wayne Enterprises has already filled the CEO's job. They gave it to Mr. Fox. So he's unlikely to sue Wayne Enterprises, because instead of just being fired, he's been fired and got a better job. So he's actually alright. And the courts wouldn't award him damages anyway, because he's been promoted effectively. But this CEO guy, he can't have his job back because it's been taken, and now he's got no job, through no fault of his own. He will sue Wayne Enterprises in an employment tribunal, and the tribunal will award him damages. Probably not 100%, because he did fire Mr. Fox without reason, so he'll be awarded lower damages. But the fact that he can't get his job back, and here's the trick, always ask for your job back, because they'll say no, and then your damages increase, because you can't have what you wanted. So he's going to make an awful lot of money by suing Wayne Enterprises, who I would recommend settle out of court, because that would affect their share price quite drastically if they actually had to go into court and were found wrong. This unfortunately means that Bruce Wayne, through his actions as trustee, has lowered the stock value of Wayne Enterprises. Unfortunately, that's not something you should be doing as a trustee, because now the beneficiaries of the trust can sue you personally for the damages, and the damages here will be the loss of value of the shares. Now, Bruce isn't going to sue himself, so one of the beneficiaries of his trusts isn't going to sue him, but the charitable trust certainly could, and technically Alfred could too, and he could sue him for his share of the trusts where it's just Bruce and Alfred as the beneficiaries. It's unlikely to happen, but the charitable trusts, Bruce has to deal with them as if it's not him that is running it for himself. So he's got to sue himself for the damages that he's done to the stock value, or the Charities Commission will come and investigate. Now, what's he going to do? So he's got to go to court and say, yes, I fired this guy wrongly, and as a result, the stock price dropped, so now I've got to pay the charities some money as damages for the loss in value, because I've reduced the value of their trust property, despite the fact that it's me running it for me. which is silly, but the charities get a windfall and then everything gets sorted out. And that's his problem, really. That's the only thing that Bruce Wayne does wrong within these trusts. So what have we learned from this? Well, we've learned that wills have to be set up properly, otherwise they'll be declared invalid, and if you die or are declared dead, you will be intestate and all of your property will go to your next of kin, rather than the people that you want them to. If you're declared dead wrongly, then the people who receive your property receive it on a resulting trust, and if you're an age of majority, they've received it on a resulting bare trust, and you can demand it all back, and they've got to follow your instructions on a bare trust. Then we've learned that you can set up a trust just by declaring yourself a trustee and transferring the property for the purposes of hoarding it yourself or hoarding it as a trustee with another person for the benefit of a third party, such as yourself and one other, or maybe your grandchildren or whatever. And you've got to maintain that trust properly for their benefit, not for your own benefit. You own the property for them. And when they're at the age of majority, they could all say, right, we'll have it now, or they'll let you continue to run it for them, whatever. It depends. And finally, we've learned that you can't just fire someone on the spot without warning for no reason. In Britain, anyway. You can in some other countries, but not Britain, because they will sue your ass off. And if you're doing it as a trustee of a company through exercising the power of the shareholder, then you're in very shaky ground, because then your beneficiaries will probably sue you for lost value of their shares. Okay, that's all very complicated, but I think we've gone through it as quickly and made it as straightforward as we can. So if you've liked this, don't forget to click the like button, share it as you will to those who might find it interesting, and remember to click the subscribe button so that you always get more videos of this type. Until next week, I've been Kirk-Robinson, you've been watching a video, and I'll see you on Monday.